Maybe I should have brought my drum set. Now that would have been a hell of a battle getting it onto a plane, especially since I only use the overheads. Why am I even talking about this? Okay, welcome to the Writer's Life, place where we get the sights, sounds, smells, tastes of my particular writer's life. What the fuck? Through the sweat. It's getting to be sweater weather here. It means the fall is catching up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Smash the like button and hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss out on one unbelievably exciting video. So I finally got like a good night's sleep because I slept on a real bed. The place I was at for a week, it was sort of like a glorified cot, really. And and there's a lot of noise outside and stuff like that because it was in the center of the city. But out here, it's far different. It's and it's good. It's a good place to work. I'm happy about it. I'm happy with it a lot. Really happy. I could live here. Anyway, okay. Again, this is not a how-to station, channel station, whatever. I usually don't do like this is how you write because I couldn't tell you how to write if I tried. But I can give you some advice. Or as Arnold says in Pumping Iron, advices. Use current events in your fiction. Actually, the period we're going through now, politically and criminally / legally, the period we're going through now is reminiscent of the 1970s, and a lot of when I hate sorry folks, but the Dems were in charge then too. And there was there were a lot of cop shows, really cool cop shows that came out then, and movies and things like that, and it was all reflective of the brutal crime wave that was going on at the time. New York City was just like a mess, similar to what it is now. You couldn't go to Times Square. Like that was just, it was a porn den, and it was ridiculous. It wasn't until Rudy Giuliani came in and cleaned it all up that it became safe again. And now it's with cashless bail. Everything's unsafe in New York State, period, upstate and downstate. And that goes for any state that does the cashless bail thing. Anyway, crime is rampant, and anyone who denies it is just lying to themselves or listening to the mainstream media, because mainstream media is biased. We've been through that before. And again, I'm an independent. I'm just telling you the truth. Don't shoot the messenger. Actually, I better watch it because I could get shot, right? But I'm in Italy now, and they changed their government, so it's a little safer here than it is back home in Albany. I'll tell you that much. But for instance, I'm writing one of my Metaman stories right now, and I use the metaverse as a tool for time travel. And in this instance, my main character, Casey Smith, who's a writer, who dies in 2054, actually goes back to 2020. And everything that's going on now is happening in the story. And like, because he's in the metaverse, like the AI that programs him, puts some of this stuff in his brain, but he was also a little boy in 2020. So he sort of remembers a lot of this stuff, but it didn't affect him so much as like he remembers his father bitching about a lot of it, stuff like that. So, but it's kind of fun playing with it. So his home that he lives in with his sister, because in the metaverse, Casey Smith is an ex-priest. I don't know why I came up with that, but I did. It just came out. And he lives with his sister in a home that their parents owned and left to them. But anyway, a home intruder breaks into the house and does some van damage on the sister, and Casey does some van damage in turn on the home intruder, chases him outside and beats the living snot out of him. But of course, being 2020, Casey gets arrested for protecting his home and hearth. But he is, he's let go. But also, the home intruder is let go because it's cashless bail. So I thought that would make a nice little story, nice little revenge story, nice little these guys are gonna have, it's gonna be a shit show, and these guys are gonna have a showdown. Because on top of it, all this goes down in like early March of 2020, and so COVID is gonna hit. And so it's going to be even more impossible to get like a cop to your house and stuff like that. So like I'm taking current events and wrapping them into a piece of fiction that's more fictional than you'll get on ABC News. I know. Sorry, folks. Can't resist it. I love busting in the mainstream media. But anyway, you have the right to listen and watch whatever news you choose. So you go ahead. There's nothing to do with me. We all have our own opinions. That's what makes us great Americans. So anyway, and that's what was happening in the 1970s. A lot of current events were being used because it was just a time of craziness. In some ways, I think it was worse in the 70s because there were like bombings, like there were the Weathermen. That wasn't a musical group. The Weathermen they were so radical that they would set bombs off and kill people. That sounds pretty bad to me. There were plane hijackings all the time. So every time you step foot on a plane, you're like, is it going to be hijacked? You had the kidnapping of Patty Hearst, and she ended up joining them. So there was, I remember I was just a little kid, so I wasn't that affected. And I always thought my dad would protect me, and he did. And I remember once our house did get broken into, and I'll never forget my dad grabbing a kitchen knife, one of these big French kitchen knives, and bravely going after them as they ran out the back sliding glass door. And I remember thinking at the time, I'm like, wow, that takes some real balls. Yeah. So my father, he was, you didn't want to mess with my father, big weightlifter guy. He could be the nicest guy in the world, but if you mess with him and his family, he would go after you. So anyway, that was the world we were living in at the time. And because of it, a lot of great crime fiction came out. That's when you had like Robert Parker come out with the Spencer series. And I think Michael Connelly was writing his first books. Maybe The Poet came out in the late 70s, early 80s anyway. Because this went into the 80s. Certainly Lawrence Block was writing a whole bunch of cool crime fiction then. And, who else? Christ. Jim Crumley wrote some of the best crime fiction ever back then. The Last Good Kiss. It was a violent time. And it's very similar to today. But like I said, I think history will show that the early 70s through the early 80s were probably worse than now. It's just that things are more publicized now, and things come out instantly on social networks. and on the internet, and things are more. I would say things are far more politicized now, because back then you had three channels and you just trusted what they told you. You just believed it. What Walter Cronkite spoke, you believed it. Like when David Jennings spoke and gave you the news, you believed it because you were supposed to, and you just didn't know. You just didn't know any better. But now you have a choice, and now you have differing opinions, and you have crazy opinions. You have radical opinions on the right, radical opinions on the left, and if you try to be in the middle, and you go nutty. But anyway, use this stuff though. Use this stuff as fodder for your fiction, because certainly the media does it, and to advance their cause, and certainly politicians do it on both sides to advance their causes. And it's a lot of fun, to like bring all this into it. And like 20 years from now, you'll go back and read some of this, and you'll be like, oh God, remember those days? They were crazy. They wanted to get rid of the police. Like, who does that? And they were, letting people out of jail and letting them live on the sidewalk. Like, what's that all about? So anyway, and there were, tragic school shootings and stuff like that, which was just horrible. And it's also one last thing. Things are also similar to back then, in that we're now again in a Cold War with Russia, not with the Soviet Union. There will be no Soviet Union anymore, but with Russia and with China, and apparently North Korea is acting up again. So, like, as much as things change, they stay the same, folks. All right. Anyway, I'm like rambling again, so I'm gonna end this. It's been a great day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Ciao, 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 ciao.